Welcome to Learn, Lead, Go, the podcast dedicated to empowering you on your leadership journey. I'm your host, DeNeen Attard, CEO of Attard Leadership Academy, and I'm excited to introduce to you our new series, Women Who Lead. This series explores leadership through the lens of entrepreneurship, where we'll explore what it takes to lead with purpose, influence, and success. As many of you know, my book, Women Who Lead, Navigating a Path of Influence and Success, is a resource that I am incredibly proud of. It's designed not just for those on their leadership journey, but also as a valuable guide for mentors working with mentees and new and emerging leaders, and even as a textbook for college-level introduction to leadership courses. Throughout this series, we'll be weaving in insights from the book, focusing on how women entrepreneurs can harness their influence and confidently navigate the complexities of leadership. You can expect to hear from inspiring women entrepreneurs who have paved their way to success. We'll be discussing the challenges they've faced, the strategies they've employed, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Women Who Lead supports and guides you through your leadership path. So let's dive into today's episode and uncover the secrets of successful leadership. Joining us today is Mary Katherine Mason, the brilliant mind behind Lanky Lassie's Shortbread. Mary Katherine, a proud Floridian native, is a successful entrepreneur and a service-disabled United States Marine who served with distinction. Mary Katherine stands just shy of 6 feet tall and is passionate about Scottish traditions. After winning the Scottish Highland Games Shortbread competition, she knew she had to share her family's beloved recipe with the world. And thus, Lanky Lassie's Shortbread, with the motto, "Long Leg Shortbread," was born. Today, we'll share her journey, her family's treasured shortbread recipe dating back to the 1800s, and her mission to make every day a special occasion. Mary Katherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
This is going to be a great show. Listeners, I want to let you know that I met Mary Katherine at a WIT conference. Actually, it was a panel discussion here in Tampa, and WIT is the Women in International Trade, where she was a panelist. When I heard her story, I knew I wanted to share it with our Learn, Lead, Go listeners during our Women Who Lead series. As most of you know, Women Who Lead is also the title of my recent book, which is available on Amazon. The book focuses on helping women lead, manage internal and external change, and gain influence. This series is important to me because I know that it's valuable to hear and learn from the journeys of other women. I believe that it makes us wiser and stronger. Mary Katherine, again, we're thrilled to have you on the show. Let's dive right in. Please share something about your incredible journey and the inspiration behind Lanky Lassie's Shortbread.
Well, sure. So I grew up having for Christmas my mom's Scottish shortbread cookies. So I didn't know till much later in life that that wasn't something that the majority of people in the United States had for Christmas. It was just something that just felt like home, just felt like Christmas to me. I used to be in the hospitality industry as a sales rep selling basically all the pretty things that you see, the interior finishes for hotels. So to set myself apart from all the other sales reps in the industry, I would make my mother's shortbread cookies to give to my clients for Christmas. One of my coworkers said to me after I had made this, she said, you know, like I've had shortbread in my life, but I have never had shortbread as good as this. This is the best shortbread I've ever had. And it was really the only shortbread I had had. So I just assumed it all tasted like that. But she said to me, she said, you know, there's a Scottish Highland Games here in Orlando, and they have a shortbread competition. I think you should enter this thing. And I'm thinking to myself, you've got to be kidding me. You know, I'm in my 20s, and it just didn't sound very hip or cool, and I really wasn't that into it. So a couple years went by, and I said, no, I think I'm going to do this thing. So I ended up entering in this competition, and when I had gotten to the Scottish Highland Games, I was blown away how big this thing was. I mean, this was a massive festival on a huge piece of property. I learned that these games have been going on since the 12th century. I started to initiate this feeling of pride and heritage that I didn't even know really existed in me, because we didn't really ever talk about this is ultimately my great-grandma Murray's recipe, so my dad's mom's recipe. We never really talked about the Scottish heritage or how important it was. So I ended up entering this competition. There was 32 contenders. I had just made it in. I'm the 31st competitor. And long story short, I won first place. My mom was there. We were, very excited. I was walking around with this giant trophy. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous how big it was. And all these people were saying, what did you do? Did you hurl haggis? Did you toss the caper, which is this like telephone pole, And they're asking me, thinking that I competed in some sort of athletic event, because I'm 6 feet tall and an athlete my whole life. And I said, no, I won the shortbread competition. And the mass consensus or reply was, you won the shortbread competition, but you're so tall. And I thought that was hilarious, because something that I've, it's kind of made fun of my whole life, being taller than everyone else. It kind of stood out as something that was just funny and ironic. And I love that. I love that aspect of it. And at that point in my life, I was like, you know what? We got to take the fact that I'm tall and move on with it, and then maybe do something with it. So my advertising background, I went home and I was like, I think I need to make a little company. It's not just me that thinks the shortbread's good, or my friends. It's all these judges, So I sat down, created my word web, created Lanky Lassie Shortbread, the slogan's long leg shortbread. And, it was a hobby, and it was something fun. I became kind of obsessed with creating artwork and creating slogans and then making this product. I did have my full-time job, and I was kind of taking out of that, where my boss said to me, are you still working for us, type thing, because I just kind of became engrossed in it. So it basically was just a hobby. I did a little wedding here or there, and did baby showers. I did create a website just to have that as a presence to look professional if people wanted to look into my business. But it really wasn't much of anything until COVID happened. And right before COVID in 2019, I had moved my family from downtown Orlando to my hometown of Dade City, Florida, which is it was a little more like a country town, lots of pastures, orange groves. Being in the hotel industry, as you know, COVID hit very hard in our industry, just like so many other industries where, having people traveling and being somewhere is how we survive. So my very lucrative job that supplied our family with a comfortable life had disappeared overnight. And my husband at the time still didn't get a job. So it was 100% solely on me to provide. And I thought to myself, well, if there was a time to do Lanky Lassies, it is now. So I started baking out of my tiny oven in my house, in my kitchen, going on social media, just telling my story. And there was a lot of people at this point, kind of on survival mode, trying to make things happen and just create it. I don't know if people felt bad for me. They wanted to help support me. They really liked my product. They were bored. I don't know, but maybe the combination of all of that, my business started to go crazy. I had to completely rebuild my entire website because it was kind of in a under construction mode for years. People would come to my house from Daytona Beach, from St. Augustine, to pick up shortbread because I think they were bored and I just wanted to get out of their house. And it became this thing where, once again, I became not only obsessed just because it was like entertaining and fun to me, but out of survival. Because, we were going to food banks to get food for the kids. It was a very trying time for everyone. So the thought of failing, it wasn't even an option, because it had to do with if my kids had food on the table or not. So that was the driving factor, was the survival. And, I sell a 1-pound bag of product, and I shipped all over, but just to backtrack, it wasn't legal to ship at that time. Cottage law in Florida at that time was you had to physically hand that bag of shortbread to someone in cottage law. And cottage law is where you can just sell person to person without having any type of proper licensing or permitting. But once you ship, you have to have your food permit. Well, serendipitously, there was they called them an incubator kitchen that had just opened up, like during the beginning of COVID. And it was 2 miles from my house, and I'm thinking, I'm going to have to drive to Tampa, somewhere far away. This is going to be a pain. This ended up being 2 miles from my house. I was able to get my food permit through the Department of Agriculture there. I didn't know anything of what I was doing. And I will stress that to the T here, because it took, God, it took just my community, all these things that just kind of came together to make this thing work. And the Smart Start Incubator Kitchen, which was ran by the Pasco Economic Development Council, I wouldn't even have known to say any of that stuff prior to this. But they were so helpful, showing me what I needed to do to sell to other businesses. I didn't have a storefront. I had my online store. But once I got my certificate through them, I could then legally sell online and ship.
Oh, wow.
DeSantis ended up changing that at the end of the year. But before that, you had to have your food permit.
Okay, let's pause for one moment.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things, because I'm hearing a trend here, which is very important in leadership. I am hearing, number one, I want to first say that I commend you. You're creating a legacy by what you're doing, and that is phenomenal. I'm also hearing some keywords that are very important for entrepreneurship and leadership, which is growth mindset. When faced with a challenge, you didn't give up. You reassessed your situation, looked at your skill set, and said, these are some of the things that I can do, and you jumped out on faith, if you will. I'm also hearing resilience. And most importantly is self-leadership. Self-leadership, I do believe, is one of the most important things, because if you can't lead and organize your own life, how will you lead a team? When we think about self-leadership, can you tell me what role that played in establishing Lanky Lassie Shortbread?
Yeah, so, really the self-leadership. I have a good base of leadership, being an athlete my whole life, but then also joining the Marine Corps when I was 19. It is a huge team effort, but they also teach you how to lead. And I did have leadership roles when I was in the military. I just didn't like other people telling me what to do, I guess. But there's a lot of responsibility with that, because if you don't lead in a way that people want to follow, they're not going to do it. So I think it's important to have empathy towards the people you are leading, and an understanding, and in this aspect, my customers have an understanding of what it is that they want, and what it is that they need that makes them feel like they want to, follow you. May it be in the Marine Corps, may it be through purchasing a product from you. But the self-leadership, the mindset to me here in this instance was I had to support my family. There was no one else that was going to do it. And if I didn't do it, if they didn't look to me as someone who was, a role model, I would feel like a failure. And there just wasn't that option. Failure was not an option. So it is impossible to fail. And, I learned that statement from a woman that owns a tea shop next to me in my location downtown Dade City. And it really hit home to me. I didn't realize that's what I was thinking. It was impossible to fail because you couldn't, because what would my kids do, So that leadership, I think, just came out of survival, to be quite honest, and probably what I had learned with the different stepping stones of my life that were just coming together to help me be that role model and leader organically, really.
First off, I want to say thank you for your service. Greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And you've actually answered one of the questions that I was going to throw at you, was how do you approach setbacks and what role does leadership play in that? And you explain that. So I am going to ask you, how do you stay motivated throughout your journey? Because we all know that entrepreneurship has its peaks, its valleys, challenges. How do you maintain a sense of purpose and vision while navigating the demands of running your business?
So I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but, the failure is not an option is such a impactful statement to me. And the thought of failing is so hard for me. I don't know exactly why. I am the baby of 5. We're pleasers. We don't want people upset with us. But, there's a feeling of letting people down that it kills me to think that I would do that. And again, to have my children see that, I think that really affects me greatly. Also, I think, that little seed that was planted at that first Scottish Highland Games of honoring my family heritage. Being in the United States, a lot of us don't have that understanding of where we came from. How did we get to, the United States? What did our family have to endure to get here? So when I think about that, and yes, this is a shortbread cookie, but what entails that shortbread cookie? What did my great-grandmother have to do to be able to come to the United States to teach my mother how to make this recipe? Where did she learn it from? I think it's so cool to have that and to honor it and to, again, show my children that, if you have something, if you have a dream, if you have a goal, if you have some sort of passion, that if you work really hard, and let's just say you are honoring your family heritage, it just makes it that so much more meaningful. But it also makes me a role model for them to become whoever they want to be, and to know that you can do whatever the heck you want to do. You don't have to follow in the steps of me. You don't have to follow in the steps of anyone. You can carve your own path and, blaze your way through it any way you want to be. But I want them to say, well, my mom did it, so I can do it. So that it just gives me a sense of purpose, with that background, really.
I love it. I love it. I love it. When I hear you say that failure is not an option, there's probably some listeners out there that think, I can't keep going. And what I want to say to them is that when I hear you say failure is not an option, what I hear is giving up and stopping and admitting defeat is not an option. And for many, that looks differently. You may pivot, but you're still moving forward. Sometimes you might go around the mulberry bush several times, but you're still making movement and going towards your goals. And that's what I think is important, because as an entrepreneur or as a leader, your journey is not going to be fun all of the time. It is not going to be rewarding all of the time, but because you have a sense of purpose and a vision of where you are going, when those times occur, you continuously grow and move forward. And I want to say thank you so very much for sharing your journey with our listeners, and also ask you to please share where individuals can purchase your famous shortbread cookies.
Sure. I just want to touch real quick before I do that on the setbacks. There's something that is really important, and it's a motto that I have just like the failure is not an option. But Harry Selfridge said, the customer is always right. And that's hard because sometimes you know things that they don't, and you just want to say, you are wrong here, sir or ma'am. But it doesn't matter. They're the ones who's purchasing your product. So the customer is always right. If you have done something and it didn't really turn out with the customer, you do have to pivot. You do have to adjust what you're doing, because you can't just make someone buy your product because you really want them to. I mean, that's the end game here. You want to be successful. You want them to buy your product. So if it's not working, you don't have to accept it as a failure. You have to accept it as, all right, well, that didn't really work that well. How can I make this better? How can I make this more appealing to the customer? And then you end up maybe making something that you didn't even think about. It ends up becoming really successful and really popular. And you just pivoted, like you had mentioned. So anyway, I just wanted to put that little tidbit in there. But yes, where you can purchase. So we do have a brick and mortar. We are ironically right next to a little cute tea room in Dade City, Florida. It just opened up during COVID, and I jumped right on it. It's about 500 square feet, and we manufacture all of our shortbread there. We ship worldwide. You can also go on our website, which is LL for Lanky Lassies, shortbread.com. You just go on there, you put in your information, where you want it shipped, what you want to buy, and we'll ship it directly to you or to whoever is the lucky recipient of the gift. We have gift wrapping, handwritten greeting cards. We also just got a pretty large contract with a very well-known financial advising company in Tampa. I won't say yet because it's for Christmas and I don't want to spoil it, to be their annual Christmas gifts for their high-end clients. So that was a pretty big victory.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. They were using a great, awesome company called Toffee to Go, which is a huge success story in Tampa. For about 7 years now, they ended up being one of Oprah's favorite things. And they just wanted to have a little change. And so after being up against several other local Tampa Bay area businesses, they decided to go with us. So all that to say, we have a very large online gift-giving world. So it's kind of fun to see where these products are going, how far they're shipping. I think my biggest victory is shipping to Scotland because, that's the birthplace of shortbread. But yes, online or our storefront. We're also in a couple high-end markets in the United States. Cashers has a farmer's market there. Stacey Brown, the chicken salad chick, she has a place in Opelika, Alabama called Botanic, which we're also there. And that's kind of the gist of what we have. And every day I just kind of make things up, see if they work, see if they don't, and then you just kind of roll with it.
Mary Katherine, it has been a pleasure getting to know you. I am so glad that our paths crossed at the Women in International Trade event. I thank you for your time, your wisdom, and again, I truly believe that our listeners are going to find inspiration and tidbits about how to navigate their leadership and entrepreneurship journey from hearing your story. Listeners, do not let the day go by without logging into her website and ordering your cookies, shortbread cookies. Thanks so much for your time. Have a great day.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Learn, Lead, Go. If you've enjoyed today's episode and want more insights, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more incredible conversations lined up, all aimed at helping you lead with influence and success. And remember, my book, Women Who Lead, Navigating a Path of Influence and Success, is available on Amazon as a resource to deepen your leadership journey. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and passion.